Welcome to the Dog Days of Summer edition of Sharing Sox. Although I guess this year for the White Sox, they're all dog days. I'm duty geezer Leigh Allan. With me, my son and West Coast correspondent Will. And we sitteth with 40 games to go in the season. We're recording this on the Friday prior to the series in Houston after the humongous win against the Yankees, which kind of disappeared there over the next couple of days. But it was fun for a day. Anything to shut up Yankee fans, even one day's worth.
I mean, when you haven't scored double digits all year, it's fun to do it against the Yankees.
It is. There was a moment where it looked like because Grady Sizemore now is 1-4, and there was a moment where it looked Wednesday in the final game of the Yankee series like the Sox were going to lose 4-2. And that would have meant that Sizemore would have had a 200 winning percentage and a positive run differential. And that would have been such a cool combination of stats to have. He would have been +2 run. But then the Yankees decided to score 8 more runs, and that went out the window.
Well, it kind of felt like after the 12-2 loss, Juan Soto was like, this isn't happening, you guys.
Yeah.
I actually saw a crazy stat since, I think it was since July 1st, the only 2 teams that haven't won 5 games at home are the White Sox and the Yankees.
Oh.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, it's not crazy for the White Sox. As we know, 5 wins at home would mean they've won 5 games since then, and they have not. And they certainly weren't all at home. But the Yankees not winning 5 games at home in at least a month. It was 50 days. The last 50 days, the 2 teams that haven't won 5 games at home were the Yankees and the White Sox.
And yet the Yankees are still neck and neck with Baltimore.
They are tied for first place in the AL East.
Yeah, and they go back and forth a half game on any given day.
Yeah, I mean, that is wild. It certainly makes me think the Yankees probably aren't going to get it done this year. I mean, I don't think you go into the playoffs and kick butt if you, for some reason, can't win in Yankee Stadium as the Yankees. That it means they're winning well on the road, which is the plus side there, I guess. But yeah, that stat blew my mind, because usually when you see these things where it says, you know, have you scored 10 runs in the last 3 months? And it shows every single team in baseball and then the White Sox on the other side. But this time it was the White Sox and the Yankees together, which I thought was pretty shocking. I mean, winning the 1 game was fun. It was fun to see all the White Sox fans be like, okay, Sizemore, we have a fire under our butts. Now we're going to start playing like we care, which of course was delusion. Yes, it's quite possible it worked for a day. But at the end of the day, you still have a bunch of guys who can't really play Major League Baseball. So
you see a bunch of comments from people who went to games, whether the 12-2 win or one of the losses, but games since Sizemore took over. So the Cubs or Yankee series, which are the best sellers of the whole season by far, for the obvious reason of who the opponents were.
Dodgers too, but yeah.
And people who went go, well, you can feel there's more energy. I said, really? You're sitting in stands up in section 512, and I can feel that a given individual ran hard or something like that, but I don't think I can sense the energy down in the maybe they're having fun, maybe if you're sitting down close in the big box seats, you can hear a little clever repartee going on between it. But basically, I'm sure they do feel better. I mean, Grifol was such a downer, and Sizemore apparently is a kind of gung ho, let's get out there and play and kick some butt if we can guy and enjoy the game, which is kind of important.
I think if this team was made up of different people, if this team was made up of 23-year-old star prospects who have just been getting their butt whooped because they're 23, and then you bring in a guy and you start winning, I think there's a chance where I buy into the energy is different narrative. But it's the same guys, and you've got no veteran leadership whatsoever, it seems. And your young guys, aren't really studs. So it's not a scenario where I think a new manager can come in and actually change anything. I think that's an unrealistic expectation of Sizemore. I think if Sizemore,
I think he can at least not do harm.
Correct. I don't think he's going to make things worse. I think bringing him in gives you the opportunity to not have the worst record ever, which I think under Grafal, it was kind of a guarantee. I really think we were at a point where it was a lock that we weren't going to get it done. I think with Sizemore, you now have a chance to not have the worst record ever. But at the end of the day, it's still the same guys going out there. They're still deflated. They're still defeated. We've all seen at this point the Miguel Vargas, poor guy sitting alone after coming over from the Dodgers, who loved him in the clubhouse, and now he finds himself in the worst clubhouse.
If I can download it into it, it is Dodger reflection on Vargas, on the Vargas scene, and how loved he was by every other player in LA, and just feels so bad for him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure. Did you see Tyler Glasnow's interview?
That's the Glasnow interview. I want to try and insert that in the column if I can get it downloaded into it.
Yeah, I mean, Tyler he's a stand-up guy, and when they ask him that, and he kind of laughs at first because it's so sad. Like, you can't help but chuckle a little bit, but then goes on to say, he was one of our favorite teammates, one of the best guys in the clubhouse, and was actually playing better for the Dodgers than he had in quite some time. And then to get shipped out into, can you just imagine? Can you imagine you're playing in LA to an average of 49,000 people, and you are in first place? Granted, they are in the danger zone of losing that, but still, your teammates with Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Clayton Kershaw, and now you find yourself in Chicago and on the wrong side of Chicago. And not that it would be a thrill to be a Cub right now, but it certainly would not have the same feeling. And then he's going to go to September where they're going to be playing for, 6,000 people often. The only thing that they have going for them, I think, in terms of... And he's hitting
116 for the Sox.
Yeah, he's been a nightmare for the White Sox, but I'm sure that's the deflating factor. The only thing the White Sox have going for them attendance-wise is, we're going to start getting that reverse success effect where people are going to want to be there for loss 121.
Unfortunately, they end the season in Detroit.
I know. But I think they can do it before that.
Game, so I'm thinking maybe I'm going to be covering loss 121. Right now, where they sit, I presume there are 40 games left. 40 games is probably 13 series. I haven't counted the series, but there are no series, 2-game series left. So it's 13 threes, 12 threes, and a 4. But somebody's a 4-game series. So if they take just one game in each of those series, they will add up at exactly 120. It's just like tying the record on losses in a row.
Oh man!
You don't want to tie the record. You want to, if you're going to be there, beat it.
Yeah, because they're in a position where they can't win more than 12, right? But they are currently on pace, if you go by their winning percentage, to only win 9. Yeah.
No, their pace is to lose 123. But
you got a 3-game cushion there. But it's going to be really interesting because you're going to Houston. You've got a really good chance, especially now that Crochet is just terrible. You've got a really good chance to get swept in Houston. Houston has a lot to play for right now.
And they're getting better.
And they're gonna face, it looks like they're facing Valdez at least. So that's with Kai Bush on the mound. So that's a pretty much a guaranteed loss. Then they're going to go to San Francisco, who still has something to play for. Is it realistic that San Francisco's in this mix with how hot the Padres and Diamondbacks are? Probably not. But the rest of the NL is so bad that there is a world where, a San Francisco team, you could have everybody coming out of the West except the Rockies in these playoffs. So I do think that San Francisco will still be playing very hard. I mean, I think they're one game over right now. They're chasing a falling Dodgers team and the two hottest teams in baseball. But there's a lot to play for there. Then they're going to have Detroit, which is kind of a toss-up. However, in that toss-up, you have to face Tarek Skubal, which is your Cy Young favorite. That's certainly not going to be easy. And then you've got Texas, the Mets, Baltimore, and Boston, who are all still trying to hang in there. Then you've got a Cleveland team who is certainly best record in the American League, is certainly going to want to sweep that series for mental purposes. For all sorts of reasons, they're going to want to sweep that. The big issue they have is once you hit mid-September, you've got the Oakland, and then you've got 2 series against the Angels. And those are the big issues there. That puts you in the danger zone. And the fact that they're at the end makes it even scarier because Oakland, I don't even know if they're going to field 9 guys at that point. The Angels are so terrible right now that they could completely drop off. And I don't know what kind of roster you're going to see from them. They're going to have to, I think they'll get swept by the Padres in San Diego. But it is really dangerous. You got 9 games in there with Oakland and the Angels. So I think in order to achieve this, they need to get swept quite a bit going into the rest of the year. Those 3 make me really, really nervous. I would love for the White Sox to get loss 121 in San Diego because I would love to get down there. Weirdly, San Diego ticket prices are always insane. They sell out constantly. They are so popular. For that series, they are $13. So I love I've never been down to Petco. I love the idea of hopping in the car, going down to San Diego and catching loss 121. The other White Sox guys in LA, we've already talked about how we're going to road trip together if that opportunity arises. But I think it's going to be bleak in guaranteed rate for the rest of the year until you creep close to that record. I think if the White Sox
overall, there are the people who do the statistical analyses of strength of schedule, and they tend to disagree because they have different algorithms on what they work with. But the 2 that I looked at both have Sox at a different position and degree of difficulty in the ranking of 30, but both about in the middle. They really have about in the middle because of the 3 series you talked about. They're a bunch of tough series, but they're 3 really easy ones. Well, if you weren't the White Sox, really easy ones.
Right. They will be competitive for us, but they are games that we could win.
Yeah. And of course, it'll depend. September, you don't have the chance to bring up 40 guys like you used to, but you can bring up a couple more guys. And I would guess for the White Sox, it'll be pitchers. They'll be trying out some of the starting pitchers that have been doing pretty well in Birmingham and see how they do. And the other teams will probably do the same.
I think with those projections that you see that have the White Sox, around 116 losses, 117, stuff like that, there's a key stat in there that I don't think gets highlighted enough in that projection. ICB, which I don't know if you know ICB, but it's a stat they use in these projections called "It Can't Possibly Be." It can't possibly be. Oh, I messed it up. It's IPB. Damn it. No, it's ICBB. ICPB. It can't possibly be. Which is we got to throw them a few more wins because they certainly can't be this bad, right? It can't possibly be this bad.
The
Joke would have worked
computers are
better if I
still
got
on
my
117. I think Pacoda and Fangraphs are both still at 117.
And that's what I mean. I think those guys are making their projections being like, no, certainly it's not 123. Certainly it's not one. It can't possibly be 123. But the crazy thing is, it quite possibly could be. And we will see how that goes. I did hear something interesting talking about guaranteed rates. I have a buddy who's coming out there in a couple weeks. And he's going to catch his first game at guaranteed rate. And he's a big stadium guy. He goes to a ton of stadiums. And he has done a lot of research and has found out that if you have a 500 level ticket, you can now go to the 100 level.
Yeah, I think they gave that up this year. It was just this, there's no sales.
Just in general?
Yeah, I think there are no sales, and you might as well treat people like they're people instead of like
I honestly don't even think it's that. I think that's a really generous thought. I think
they don't have any workers upstairs.
Exactly. I think they don't want to open anything up there. So basically what they're saying is, look how nice we are. We let you go to the 100 level. But in reality, what they're saying is you have to walk a mile to get your hot dog, buddy. Because we're not selling you one up here. No one's going to be up here. So at least there's that, because my buddy's very excited about the campfire shake, and I'm sure you couldn't get that on the 500 level at the one hot dog stand they're going to have open. But at least they're letting people.
I bet for September it's not open at all. I mean, we've been, or at least I've been to games where the upper deck's just closed.
Yeah. I mean, they've got a couple games coming up where they're going to fill a little bit. I think the Frank Thomas bobblehead weekend.
I was going to say the giveaways tend to be very successful.
Yeah, and I think that's a big enough one. What's interesting is the White Sox don't do a lot. They don't do a high number of giveaways, which I guess you can't because if you do 30,000 or 40,000, then you're going to end up throwing away 20,000 giveaways. But they do a really small number. The Dodgers do the most. They do 40,000 of each giveaway.
I think the Sox are typically 10.
Yeah. And a lot of teams are in the 15, 20,000 range for the marquee giveaways. The Dodgers do far more than anyone else, which they can because they're going to have a first 40,000 at every game that there's a giveaway. They're not going to have leftover giveaways on a 40,000 giveaway day. But other teams would. Well, we do have something we want to talk about on this episode specifically. The proposed, some of you've probably read the article on ESPN or various sources about this 6-inning starting pitcher minimum limit that they're wanting to do. So we should take our break here, and I think this is something really worth dissecting and talking about. As for me, I'm such a big fan of starting pitching. Growing up in an era of starting pitchers that we all did actually. Until this era, we all grew up in eras where starting pitchers mattered a ton. But for me as a kid, it was Roger Clemens and Pedro Martinez and Randy Johnson, and starting pitchers were what got you in the building a lot of the time. So we'll take a quick break here, and we will come back and talk about this proposed rule change. Hang in there. We'll be right back on Sharing Sox. Welcome back to Sharing Sox. We dissected, the continuation of the sadness and madness.
And I didn't even mention that there is no longer a single position player on the White Sox with a positive WAR.
Ooh.
I'm sorry, with a positive or WAR either, but a positive OPS. OPS plus of 100, of course, is league average by definition. They set it to that, and there's not a single White Sox position player with an OPS plus of 100 or more.
That makes Luis
Tommy Pham was
Robert
the
look
last one.
really
He
bad.
was a 101. Moncada is over, but of course Moncada's probably not going to play, so that doesn't really count.
Man, that is a stat that makes Luis Robert look like he is absolutely screwing it up.
He's hitting. Let me tell you here. Since the All-Star game, he is hitting 135.
Wow.
43 strikeouts in 92 plate appearances.
Wow.
And he was even quoted the other day. I mean, and it's not, he didn't saying I give up. He was saying, well, I just almost feel like giving up because it's so awful, you know. And he doesn't talk much. He's a very quiet guy. And and if he's talking like that, he's got to really, really, really feel bad. But anyhow, that's not the story.
I mean, when you have more strikeouts since the All-Star break than Tony Gwynn had in the 90s, you certainly have to be feeling kind of bad there. But let's talk about this new proposed rule. So the idea is that a starting pitcher will have to stay in the game, will have to pitch 6 innings unless they throw 100 pitches, they give up 4 or more runs, or they are injured in a way that will put them on the IL. That's
I think
a pretty massive rule change.
Would have to be an adjustment because I think pitchers leave games for blisters all the time, and that shouldn't put you on the, that shouldn't be a mandatory IL. I understand why it's there, so you don't fake it, but
because everybody would fake it all the time. Everyone would fake it all the time.
This rule would never affect the White Sox because we don't have any pitchers that don't go 100 pitches before they get to 6 innings.
Well, which leads me to, why we don't have pitchers that don't go 6 innings, because they all throw 100 pitches by the 4th. So, I think it was Brandon Gomes, it might have been for the Dodgers after this proposal was made, where he just said, you're just going to let your pitchers run up the count to get to 100. And you're going to have a painfully slow first 4 innings. And then you're still going to see the bullpen in the 5th and the 6th. And that would be my biggest concern. Yeah. My biggest concern is that they'll say, okay, well, you're not going to change our strategy with this rule. All you're going to do is allow us to throw a lot more balls. You're going to allow us to dance around the strike zone a lot more, because if we just got to get to that 100 pitch mark, well, we don't care if you average 25 pitches an inning. It doesn't change the game that much for us. You're out after 4 or you're out after 5. Starting pitchers are going the least far into games as they ever have.
Every year it keeps
not
going
even
down.
Close.
Yeah.
Keeps going down. We're now at just above 5.
I think it's 5.13. Maybe it was the number I saw recently.
Something right around there, which is really pathetic. I mean, it's that is a different game entirely than even the 90s, early 2000s.
I guess they were around 6 then. It was around 5.98 or something, in the early 2000s.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
The reasons for this idea, and it would take years to implement because you'd have to work pitchers through the minors, and some are saying even to the amateur ranks would have to change. Although in colleges, it seems they never go more than 3 innings. But at any rate, one reason is because of starting pitchers. What you said, people come to games to see starting pitchers, then the starting pitcher is gone, and nobody comes to see the bullpen. Now, there are a couple of exceptions to that, but by and large, people do not come to see the bullpen.
I mean, if they're coming to see the bullpen, it's not that they're coming to see it. First off, there's only one scenario, and that's if you have a famous closer. And
if you have Liam Hendricks, there will be people who want to see Liam Hendricks pitch.
But they're still not coming to the game to see Liam Hendricks pitch because you have no clue if he's going to pitch. Yeah.
Right. So part of it is that. Part of it is the PR thing of having the pitchers go. Part of it, a big part of it is that they want to cut injuries. And the idea is if they have to go that deep, that they will not be throwing 100 miles an hour. And if you have to go more on control and command, than on sheer velocity, that it will change the game, probably create more offense, which major leagues want, but also cut down on Tommy Johns. I tried to look up whether more starters than relievers, what the percentage is of starters and relievers who have Tommy John. I can't find that. It's probably somewhere online, but I can't find it. And of course, some people aren't defined by starter relievers, so it becomes shady anyway. But I don't know that makes it. You had thought as an ex-pitcher that when the shot clock came in, that we would not see the 100-mile-an-hour pitches because the pitchers wouldn't have all that time to kind of stroll around the mound and get their breath back and get ready for the next pitch. It turns out they're just really good at getting ready for the next pitch. It hasn't made any difference at all.
Well, they are and they aren't, because what they are doing is they're not saying, okay, I got to focus more on command. I got to focus more on control. What they're saying is, I'm going to throw it 100 miles an hour till my arm falls off. And they are not using this opportunity to retool pitching in any way. They are pitching the exact same way. And everybody is getting Tommy John. Everybody is getting it. Any pitcher who comes up right now, if they're throwing 100 miles an hour, you're getting Tommy John. Paul Skeens is probably he's going to be the first guy to have 4 of them. Like, it is crazy. I mean, the Dodgers just lost River Ryan, a stud who just came up, throws gas, was looking incredible. All of a sudden, elbow discomfort, done for the year. It's happening with almost every single stud prospect that's coming up. It's going to continue to happen. So I understand the logic behind, if I have to go further in this mindset, in this world, I understand the logic of, I have to go further in the game so I can't blow out my arm as much. However, based on what Brandon Gomes said, which is, if it's just 100 pitches, if we can get them out at 100 pitches, then you don't actually have to make it to the 6th inning. And in that scenario, you just go out and you throw 100 miles an hour until you hit 100 pitches in the 4th or the 5th, and then they take you out. And that does nothing at all to derail what is going on with these Tommy John scenarios. It changes nothing whatsoever in how they're going to approach each pitch. And, Major League Baseball says, we want more offense. We want more offense. This could lead to more offense. Well, what do pitchers want? Pitchers want less offense.
Sure.
There's no point where a pitcher is ever going to say, oh, well, the league wants more offense, so I'm going to give it to them.
Yeah, I think I'll put this one right. I'm going to hang a slider in the middle of the plate too, Aaron Judge, and see what happens. Yeah,
I'm going to cut my fastball down to 92, and I'm going to take the movement off. Like, it's just never ever going to happen where these guys are. Well, they should be this competitive. So this is not a slam that they're too competitive.
Exactly.
They should be going out there saying, I want 0 runs to score. There's no world, even in slow pitch softball, of course, 0 is unrealistic, but you're like, I want less than 15 runs to score this game. I'm never going up there saying, okay, I'm fine with giving up 30 because we'll try to score 31. It just doesn't happen. Sometimes you give up 30, but you never make that your goal. There is no world where the pitchers go out there and say, I'm going to cut it back because I got to get through the 6th. And if that leads to more offense, so be it. That's great for the game. It doesn't exist. It's a pipe dream.
There's some corollaries to that are also under discussion. Again, these things are years away. It's an interesting thought. One is to mandate, they've made the rule now on 3 batters for a relief pitcher, to increase that to 5, so that you can't have as much turnover in relief pitchers. They've got to go a little bit longer. I don't know what impact it has on how fast they throw, how hard they throw. I can't think going to 5 makes much of a difference because they often go to 5 anyway, whether they want to or not. Another possibility was cutting down the number of pitchers on permitted on the team, and what somebody commented on that was, it was in the ESPN article, but one of the follow-ups maybe, that the union would not put up with that because of any limitations on players. It's just the union is going to fight. Of course they are. That's their job.
Yeah.
But then the thought was, what if you did this at the same time as expansion, so that there were actually more players in the majors, just one, like if you went down to 25 players on the team, 12 of whom could be pitchers, but you've got two new teams out here, so that more than makes up for the loss on there. You've actually added players. I mean, there are just so many technicalities on this. But the real question is, would it really help with injuries?
I don't see how it would. I don't see how the first off, the three through the 3 batters to 5 batters thing or whatever. That is like, putting a blindfold on and throwing darts at something to see if that works. I don't see any value in that whatsoever. I truly don't. I mean, I guess you're saying we do that and then you have one less guy in the bullpen and that kind of offsets that. But what is this world we're coming to in baseball where you bring a reliever in, he's got to face 3, all 3 guys just crank this pitcher, and then you got to keep him in for 2 more guys? I understood the move to get rid of the loogies, to get rid of the 1-out lefty guys. It was really slowing down the game. It was really boring. But I don't understand saying if we bring a reliever in and it's not his day, he has to go through 5 batters no matter what. It just doesn't feel like baseball. It doesn't feel like baseball strategy to me. It certainly has nothing to do with injuries. I mean, if you got a guy who goes out there and he's just getting shellacked, he's going to be doing things that he should not be doing to try to not be shellacked. And I don't see how that can help you in the injury world. Having fewer guys in the bullpen doesn't seem like it can help you in the injury world, because all that means is you got more strain on those guys as you move deeper into the season. You've got more tired arms in September. Tired arms lead to injured arms. I don't even understand how that works. So there's so much fear about this 6-inning thing and about these potential changes to the bullpen that just don't seem to actually form a cohesive answer for how to A, keep guys from getting hurt, and B, get more offense going in Major League Baseball.
I just wrote a bit because of how much it pertains to 2024 about the 1970 White Sox, which are the team that had the most losses of any White Sox team ever, 106 of them. And what changes were made after that, because they improved dramatically over the next 2 years in ways that this team, frankly, just cannot. But one of the things in the process of doing that was looking at the innings that the starting pitchers threw. And I don't have them written down here, but if Wilbur Wood was a knuckleball pitcher, of course. So all he's doing basically is playing catch with the catcher. And he throws 350 innings a year, and he probably could have thrown 450. And the guy was incredible. But even the other pitchers were up 250, 260, 280. Just, Stan Bonson, those kind of guys. Tommy John, who had Tommy John surgery 2 years later. And that's my other battle. Tommy John's got to be in the Hall of Fame because he's the most famous ex-ball player that ever lived, because his name is out in the news every day.
And he's only getting more famous. He's probably the only old-timer who's getting more famous every year, even though nobody really outside of White Sox fans or a few others know where he played or what he did.
Yeah. He was a terrific pitcher. 288 wins. Pitcher.
Oh, he was a great pitcher.
WAR.
But he's not famous for the 63 WAR.
No, he's famous. He's famous for being on an operating table.
Yeah. And yeah, so I'm not one of those. I'm not a baseball conservative on things need to stay the same. things need to. I'm actually a big fan of the pitch clock. I'm a big fan of the bigger bases. I like some of the changes. Of course, I'm never gonna like the ghost runner at second.
No,
But
I'm with you there.
but I'm only okay with it because they don't do it in the postseason. If they did it in the postseason, that would just be annoying. But I kind of get it for the regular season, but I don't like it. I don't like that rule. I'm not a purist when it comes to these things, but I just this 6 inning thing and these possible bullpen changes, I don't think they are fleshed out ideas on how to really change anything in terms of injury or offensive run. I mean, I love the idea that when you implement this rule, all of a sudden everyone's got to watch, hours of footage of Greg Maddux and figure out how he did that for all those years. But that's just not the reality of the game right now. I mean, the hitters are too good. So these guys are going to have to figure out how to throw 100 miles an hour no matter what. And I think the answer to that is going to be, if I throw 100 pitches by the third, I throw 100 pitches by the third. And how is that a better scenario? How is dancing around the strike zone at 100 miles an hour better?
Completely leave this projection, because I think it really is more an injury thing, but leave the injury category. What is your proposal for offense?
For offense, I don't care. My proposal is, I feel like they score enough runs. I mean, I'm bored by the amount of strikeouts, but that's really because of the approach to offense more than anything. We're in the launch angle era. So the strikeouts, the 3 true outcomes is pretty big still.
And pretty boring.
It's boring. So I don't know that any of these changes actually put more balls in play, because guys are still just going to try to hit it out of the park. If you move the fences back 20 feet, then maybe you have a world where guys are like, okay, it's really hard to hit it out. So let me try to figure out something to do here. I guess you could try deadening the ball, which will give you more balls in play, but it won't necessarily give you more runs. And if what Major League Baseball wants is run production when they say offense,
I'm not. I mean, run production is what they care about. That's the statistic that you get shown. It's 4.2 runs instead of 4.5 from 3 years ago or whatever. No, I think what they really want is balls in play. Balls in play are fun. Balls not in play are not. It's a spectator sport, and from a spectator's point of view, watching strikeouts, unless you're counting them for somebody who's out to set a record, is dull. Watching walks is dull. And yes, there are home runs, and they happen to be for your team. That's fun. Oh, look how far it went. But basically, that's not real exciting either. It doesn't keep the game flowing. Nobody's running around. There aren't plays being made. Nobody's trying to throw a guy out when the ball is in the center field bleachers. So they need something for balls in play. Deadening the ball is certainly a possibility. I like your 20 feet back. Of course, nobody's going to do that because you have to change every stadium. And the owners are not going to go to that expense. They're not going to go to that expense and lose those seats.
Which is a bummer because, then you're going to have the people who come out and say, well, now no one's hitting home runs. So now home run numbers, guys, the league leaders are hitting 30. They're not hitting 70 like they used to, and they're not hitting 50.
Except for Ohtani, who all of his are 450 feet anyway. So what difference does it make?
Ohtani's pretty safe no matter what. Ohtani would do well in my new version where everyone. I mean, that's like one of the few things. You make it harder to hit a home run, and people won't hit home runs. Make it harder to hit a home run, and maybe pitchers won't feel like they have to throw it 100 because. But then you have the other side, which is if you throw it 100, it's actually a lot easier to hit a home run if you make contact. A ball coming in at 100 that meets a swing that's at 98, it's going to fly far. Yeah. So, I mean, deadening the ball, which, of course, a lot of people are going to hate the idea. Pitchers will not. They will not hate the idea. Moving the fences back, which is also very complicated because there aren't rules in Major League Baseball on the size of the field and what that means. So if Houston's got to move their wall, well, first off, you can't move their left field wall 20 feet back because then you don't have seats in left field because theirs is such a joke.
What about Boston? You don't have anything. You've got a wall sitting in the middle of the Charles River.
Moving the monster back there, first off, what an operation to move the monster back. But I love the idea that you can either move it back or you can raise the height. And I love the idea that the Green Monster is now 100 feet high, where it's actually just, then we're going to see moonshots come into play again. And that's kind of a fun idea. I don't know what the answer is outside of, deadening the ball and making it harder to hit the ball out of the park so that guys have to, learn to bat like Tony Gwynn. I truly don't know. I don't have an answer for how to make this work. But the way it is right now, it's pretty boring.
What you were just saying a moment ago is a cheaper version of the move the fences back, which they're just not going to do, would be, and you can't raise the Green Monster, but raise, and just like the Dodgers did when they first moved to LA and they had that 220-foot porch or whatever it was out in left field, and Wally Moon would just go, beep. But to put a big high fence up, and that does not absorb, so that it would come back in the field, and then that guy's running the bases, just like at the Green Monster. It goes off the Green Monster. That guy's running the bases could very well get thrown out at second. Exciting play. If you got a good left fielder, he can get some guys. But that would help some. Get some outfield play going.
But if you're going to raise the wall, you have the same issues that you have with owners if you say, I want to push it back, which is if you raise the wall, then their options are to eliminate a bunch of seats or to raise all the seats.
Make it a fence. I would make it like a mesh fence, just like you have behind the plate now. Nobody complains about being able to see the game from behind the plate.
I think people would complain about being all the way in the outfield and having to look through a fence. People would complain about any of this. All people do is complain. So people will complain about any of these things. I'm just not sure. I'm not sure, but we are about out of time today, so we will leave this question unanswered. We did not have a perfect solution for you today here on Sharing Sox, which I know is shocking. We almost always end with a perfect solution on how to fix everything in baseball, but today we will not. Do you have any final thoughts before we sign off?
Well, just one stat on something that I was working on to write tomorrow. Eloy Jimenez in Baltimore is hitting .414 with a .916 OPS.
Holy cow.
With the White Sox, he was hitting .240 with a 642 OPS.
Wow.
Most of the players who went, and this is what the piece is about, have improved quite a bit. The exception is Eric Fetty, who's gone the other way. But most of them have become much happier playing for a competitor.
Kopech would be Kopech's got Cy Young numbers going on over in LA.
Yeah.
Wow, that is crazy.
Banks is doing extremely well in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I got to see him pitch for the Phillies when they were here in LA. That was cool. It was fun cheering for him. Wow, that Eloy thing is wild. That's telling. That is telling. That one right there. Maybe it'll level out, but
it's an incredibly small sample size. He said 29 at bats, but it's still fun to consider that.
Yeah, and it makes me happy for Eloy because we all love him. Yeah.
He's a jolly guy. Make him jollier.
Yeah, exactly. I'd love to see him be great.
That's a lot of hits, right? Hasn't pulled his hamstring on the way to first base a single time.
Well, now he's doomed. I hear they make you stretch in Baltimore, so that could have something to do with it. I don't think they make you stretch in Chicago. So that could be it. Well, we are out of time for today. thanks so much for listening. It'll be interesting to see how many, if any, wins we have the next time we are back. But we look forward to it, and we will catch you next time right here on Sharing Sox.